about these intros, you know? So much pressure. So much pressure. Really, it's so much pressure. And as we gather here on Sunday mornings, we come because, I think we're coming because we're looking for some sort of spiritual enrichment, something where we feel we get some insights into our own lives and how we can grow and change. But before we go there, really, what about my shoes?
I love them.
Aren't these great shoes? I just gotta have a moment for my shoes, right? Now to me, these are inspired shoes. Aren't they?
Oh yeah.
So last Friday, I was in Shoe Warehouse just looking for some sandals. And, Shoe Warehouse is this really plain place. It's not like, you're in, the Nordstrom's looking at shoes, right? And I go along, and all of a sudden in the midst of all these very plain shoes, there's these shoes. And I think, wow, these are really creative, interesting shoes. And so I'm just kind of enjoying the beauty and the creativity of them. And I'm kind of looking at them and I'm holding them and thinking about, and I think, wow, who made these shoes? They must have really been having a really inspired moment when they created these shoes. And I was thinking, well, I wonder who would wear these shoes. And then I thought, kind of looked around, I can wear these shoes. I can wear these shoes. So I tried them, I sure enough they fit. And I'm like just walking around, Shoe Warehouse, feeling like the cat's meow, right? And, but it was interesting because I was transported into a moment by the creativity and by I was thinking about, well, what did that person have to confront to create these shoes? Especially for somewhere like Work Warehouse, where they probably want, the basic shoes. Did someone say to them, or in their own mind say, you know what, they're a little too out there. They're too busy, they're too colorful, they're not practical. And how often do we do that to our own ideas? We get inspired ideas, and then our minds start chewing it down, right? They start saying, it's too much, people won't get it, they won't understand, I'll be too odd, blah, blah, blah. And we minimize those inspired ideas. And really, inspired ideas lead to inspired moments. To me, they're an experience. I definitely had an experience with these shoes. And we have these experiences all the time. And I think that's part of what enlivens us, that opens us to the greater flow of spirit. And so I started thinking about the word inspired. And I thought, it's kind of like inspirited. I'm inspirited. There's a greater flow of spirit coming through in the moment when something is larger than life. So think of the last time that you were around something that was inspiring for you. Wasn't there something greater? The truth is, we are all expressions of the divine. But we don't always recognize it in each other because we normalize it and we minimize it. We just don't think it's a big deal. And so it often takes a moment when it's bigger than that. And we see it in things like, I was reflecting on the Olympics. I think part of what draws people to the Olympics, even when you're not a sports person, I'm not a big sports person, but there's something that happens. I love to watch the opening ceremonies and the times when people are getting their medals, because in that moment and as they're moving into whatever it is that they've accomplished, isn't it larger than life? Mm-hmm. And what if that's really when spirit gets to rush through them in a greater amount? And it's not that they're special, it's that they're open. That's what I think it is. It's in those moments that we open to inspiration. We open to spirit. We let spirit use us fully, wholly, and completely. And some of the greatest greatest, what's the word I'm looking for, discoveries often come. If you look at Madame Curie and a lot of scientists, you'll find that their great discoveries came when they had all but given up. You know, they had tried this and tried that, and the mind, the logical mind, had kind of surrendered. It said, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this idea I had isn't going to work. And of course, because it's open, in comes spirit. And that inspiration is there. And actually, unity is birthed from one of those very inspired ideas that happened for Myrtle Fillmore. And she's one of our co-founders. And back in 1886, right at that time, there was a lot of kind of high vibration thinking happening. There was the transcendental thinkless, people gathering in the think tanks, Emerson, and E.B. Weeks was one of the kind of new thought people who was bringing a new look at Christianity. And Myrtle happened to go to a talk of his, and he spoke about how that we are children of God, that we are children of the Father, of this great, whole, complete thought and expression. And there was something about that that really connected with her in that moment. And she thought, if I am a child of God, then I cannot inherit illness. I can't inherit illness because I'm not that. I'm not just the child of my parents. I am a child of God. And to her, this was a huge revelation because she had tuberculosis and had had it for many years and was not expected to live long. And she lived in that shadow. And in that moment, she realized that that was limited thinking. That she really was a child of God, whole and complete, and there was absolutely no reason why she couldn't live her life from that place. And it was very profound. And out of that, she moved into living from that place. And for the next 2 years, every day, she spent hours being in sync with herself, going into the body. And first of all, the first thing she did, which I think is quite profound, is she apologized to every part of her body for seeing it as limited, for seeing it as sick. She realized she had been thinking that, and that her body wasn't limited, and that she wasn't sick, and she worked through that, and 2 years later, she did, in fact, have no sign of tuberculosis. And this was inspiring, as you can imagine, to many people around her, especially her husband, Charles Fillmore, who had already been a great philosopher and studier of the great religions, and he began to think about it from her perspective. And together they moved into this inspired thought, which created unity. This idea that we are divine expressions of God, and to live from that place, whole and complete. And it birthed a huge movement. That was an inspired thought, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I love actually how Wayne Dyer speaks about this. I really enjoy Wayne Dyer because he kind of takes these big, lofty spiritual ideas and kind of simplifies them. And one of the ways that he talks about this concept is about pie. He talked about his saying that if God were like a pie, if spirit were like a pie, and it was full of apples and sugar and pastry, and it was all that it was whole and complete. The pie had everything, and it was delicious and perfect and wonderful. And then you took a knife and you cut a little piece of the pie, and you put it on a plate, and you gave it to someone. They would have all the qualities of the pie in their piece. And that's how he holds it. He believed that we are part of the big pie, and we are individual pieces, individual slices of that. So if we come from it, how could we not have all those qualities? It's not like once you cut the pie, it doesn't have any apples. And it was really an inspired thought. And when we open to this kind of thinking, we too rise up into the energy of it, don't we? It's very palpable. As I say, we see it in things like the Olympics where people feel the oneness. I remember back in 2014 when Canada won 14 gold medals, and that was, broke the record of how many gold medals could be won in the Olympics by some country. And, the buzz around was, now we have the collective we won 14 medals, right? And I was thinking, I don't know about you, but I didn't ski down any slopes, right? But there was the feeling that spread through the country. There was this sense of oneness. And how neat is that? We were united in that moment. And we get united in these higher vibration thoughts because in my mind what's happening is there's literally a vibrational current. And in quantum physics, they're proving it scientifically now, what many of us have felt spiritually for millenniums, is this sense that there is a palpable vibrational state that we can lift ourselves up into and be part of. And it's valuable to be in that because it lifts us out of our limited thinking. Because what's the opposite? When we're feeling small, limited, heavy, thick, uninspired, depressed, right? All those words that we use are that sense of making ourselves that way. And yet, when we hear a beautiful piece of music, you just kind of feel yourself start bubbling up a little bit, right? You start feeling yourself expanding. Or you're watching a performance, and the more inspiring the performance becomes, the more you lift up into it. And I think that that's a very tangible thing, and I think it's a worthwhile pursuit. Because it really doesn't matter who had the inspired thought, who started it. That's the really wonderful thing. We can join in. We can be part of the oneness at any time, any place. And we are very blessed here because we experience it. Anthony is a channel for some of that inspired music that just comes through. He'll call me on a Wednesday and say, I've got a new song, we'll do it on Sunday. And I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? And it just comes through. And when we have those feelings, when things actually come through us, everybody can sense it, right? You can feel it. It's like, ooh, that's a goodie, right? And you move into it. And it's life-changing. So I think it's not so much that we have to strive to be inspired all the time ourselves, but be open to the inspiration that's around us. Nature is inspiring, is it not? Mm-hmm. Spending time in nature expands us and raises our vibration and takes us up into that. Music, art, and readings. If you're struggling with something, lift your mind up. Read something that's inspiring to you because it will literally take you from this. It's very hard to have inspired thinking when you feel not good enough and hopeless and thick and tired. Right? It's like, yeah, this is going to work. This feels good. We're not in touch with that. We have to get up in it and lift up in it. And quite frankly, I think that's the purpose of prayer. It's not to pray to fix something. We don't have that kind of control, as much as we would like to think we do. We can't control the world. We can't control other people, how they think and what they're doing. But we can rise up ourselves up into, whatever you want to call it, the God current, the energy, that love and light, where inspired thinking is. So when we lift up into that, we can come up with we get our own inspired ideas. So it's the wording often that can take us to that place. And Claude Pellerin, who's the new president of our board here, is actually running a class on David Hodgkin's work, which is about that. It's about the vibration of words and how that we can use certain words to raise our vibration and take us into that state. And I highly recommend joining the book study if that kind of thing inspires you, because you can be part of that and be in that inspiration. And sometimes it can happen on simple things too. They don't have to be significant things. Like, I remember a while ago, there was this YouTube that went around of the quintuplets. Did you see these 5 little babies? And they're laying with their mom, and the dad is making them laugh. Did anybody see that video? And so, you know how wonderful it is to hear one baby laugh wholeheartedly? Try 5. Look this up on the video. It's just, it's fabulous. Look up a YouTube video. And they're laughing so joyously, and the dad is making all 5 of them laugh. The rush of life force, right? That's coming off of those children. I mean, I just felt like, oh, you know, I felt so joyful. Who could not laugh along with them? So seek out those kinds of moments where you can connect and lift up yourself into that vibration of that. And a lot of other cultures have a deeper sense of this. First of all, this connection. For example, the Eastern religions speak about the fact that we have a crown chakra and that we are connected to spirit through this chakra. And what's very interesting is where that crown chakra is what we call the soft spot of the baby's head, or the fontanelle. And it's literally an opening in the skull. An opening where spirit can come through. And that stays very open until about 2-3. And then it starts to close over a little bit. Which is interesting because developmentally, that is when we begin to have a sense of ourselves as separate. Isn't that interesting? Up to this point, it's like they're just walking around all connected up, right? Like children are like, woohoo! Right? And there's that sense of being, and they feel one with their mom and one with their dad and one with the dog and everything. And there's just this sense of it. And then they go through this stage where, interesting enough, it starts to close over a little bit, and then it becomes about mine. And this is mine, and mine, and mine. And they start to divide, perceive themselves as separate. And the development happens of the real personality, and the ego becomes intact. And that's why it's so easy then, right? But we can go back up into the state. And that's why often in meditation it becomes easier. Spend time meditating, and if you focus on this part of your head, you might even feel the energy begin to open up and make it easier for you to get that download or that inspired thought and action. And my final comment I wanted to share was about a concept called, now how can I say it probably, Ubuntu. How do you say it? Ubuntu. Hard to say, even harder to live, quite frankly. And in northern Africa, in Ghana, they live from this place. And there is no actual word in the English language to describe what that is, because it is a feeling, it's an experience. It is that sense that we are, and you are. Because of each other, we exist. And that coexistence, it's not for them, I will help another. It's, I am another. There's no separation. They don't have a thought like that. It's sort of like, you know, when we sit down to have a meal with our family, and a family member is hungry, we wouldn't eat in front of them without offering them something. Well, that's how they live their life. They live in that. And there's lots of other cultures that do too. And I think it's a worthy thing to strive for. To begin to see that I am you and you are me. And we can be in this inspired state together and enrich each other's lives just by sharing whatever it is that we think is worthy. Express your essence into the world. And it is also very helpful to come into somewhere that's like-minded, like our community here, where you can come and be fully you and share that. And know that you are inspiring other people just by being who you are. Thank you.